Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. After all the positive rumours we have seen over the last several weeks with regard to Modern Warfare 3, now we are dealt a dose of reality it seems, with rumours emerging that Cellium Games may go somewhat back on their word and bring doors to all the OG MW2 maps that are going to arrive into the new title, we believe, in a couple of months' time. Is this going to make things even worse than we already fear potentially for competitive play? What do the pro players have to say on it? Very much interested to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, wanted to mention this. So OpTic have done their new version of the OpTic Nation thing that you can sign up for, whatever. But one thing that was noted here on the graphic they come out with to announce OpTic Nation Season 2 is that we have these exclusive shows and all this stuff on the left-hand side. But on the right-hand side, and this is the best quality of this I could find, unfortunately, you probably will see that it says OpTic Major 2024. So OpTic Nation members get early access to the tickets and stuff. But what I'm interested in really here is, the fact that they say OpTic Major 2024, which I imagine, and this is the OpTic Texas logo, of course, which very much heavily implies there will be an OpTic event next year. I think we could probably assume this, let's be honest, because OpTic are the biggest team, they've got the biggest events, so it makes sense why they will go back there again, because right now we don't know what majors are going to be held next season. I'm sure that they have a very good idea, but of course, it takes the teams to apply. We're not going to get a London event, unfortunately, unless London, if they even still are in London next season, which they might not be based on the rumours we saw a while ago. They have to say, all right, we'll host it, right? And if they don't say that, then there's no event there. So I think, honestly, we might get a few repeats from last year, just because some of the teams that did it are going to be willing to do it again, possibly, especially if, Toronto, I don't think they lost money there. They might not have made any money from the Toronto Major, but I think I would like to see them run that back again. And there's a question as to whether other teams, especially in this economic climate, will actually want to commit resources to something that they really don't know if they can make it work so well. We might see more of what, Rocket did last year, when they put on these local tournaments, or, they try and get people to fly out. The home series they did, effectively, right, where they would get other teams to come to the venue. They'd play their league matches on LAN in front of a crowd. Much easier, I guess, and cheaper to set something like that up, even do it a few times, than it would be to host an entire major. So we don't yet know when the locations or where the locations are going to be. We'll probably find out. Usually it's roughly when the game launches. The CDL confirms what the calendar is, and at that point we'll probably know at least 4 of the 5, I would say, major locations. This most recent season, right, the CDL did the first one opening up in Raleigh, then there was Boston, then there was the OpTic one, and then it was meant to be New York, but it didn't happen. They went to Columbus, then Toronto, and then Champs was in Vegas. So I think it's expected to see that the OpTic Major will come back. Maybe it'll be Major 3, maybe it'll be Major 1 as it was back in Vanguard, but yeah, that's pretty much confirmed now. We think that probably the Arlington, whatever it's called again, the Esports Center Arlington or something, is in Texas, is going to host another event for next season, which makes sense, but it's kind of the first confirmation that we have of what we could expect on the calendar for the 2024 season. Wanted to quickly mention this from JP as well on the OpTic side, and I'm sure that he's been fun, and I've always found this a concern and an issue, that so many of the VODs from back in the day on various games are just they don't exist anymore. There's some from MW2 2009, there's some even from 2007-8 on COD 4. There's some tournament that even HyDra was playing in that you can find on YouTube, but so many of the games in recent eras, even EasyMac has looked into this to try and find it. All of the Advanced Warfare VODs are just gone. You can't really find them anywhere. Most of Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare is gone as well. It's really sad, right? And there have been rumours that the entire, all of those VODs that were broadcast back in the day on either MLG.TV or whatever it was, they're stored somewhere. I think MLG they think they have hard drives somewhere with all of these old VODs on, but nobody knows where they are, I think. So, I guess they're going to try and find it. Maybe one day they will. But it is sad to see so much history is effectively lost, because none of this is on YouTube. You can find some old Twitch VODs of, Black Ops 3 moments, but even then it's pretty tricky. So it's really unfortunate, and I'm sure JP's kind of, as a stats guy and one of the OG stat guys, kind of frustrated by that. Now let's talk Modern Warfare 3. These were all the positive rumours we had the other day, and it seemed like Cellium was pretty much taking all the bad things that Infinity would have done, especially starting from MW19. That was really the game that, I don't think that game was good, but I think that the pandemic and other factors made that game way more successful than it had any right to be as far as I'm concerned, and therefore I guess Activision thought, oh, Infinity Ward are, they know what they're doing here, right? Let's go again. And then MW2, this most recent game, I think it was kind of revealed, especially with player numbers dropping off and such, that they hadn't really got the right formula. So Sledgehammer have come out and said, all right, we're going to go back to basics here. Minimap is back, higher health, loads of positive things about the game that we've talked about over the last few days. There's also been some talk about movement as well, we'll get into a second. There's also loads of guns in this game. There's going to be all the weapons we think from the most recent title, plus plenty more. And I think it's now been confirmed overnight that the ACR, the UMP, the Scorpion Eva are all going to return in a new game. That's pretty exciting. Of course, some of these weapons people love to use back in the day. The Scorpion is kind of famous because of Scump's moment in Black Ops 2. Different weapon, really, okay, different game, but it's technically the same gun in some respects. So maybe there's something to be said about what guns are going to be preferred by the pros as a result of that, and whether there's going to be any overlap, shall we say, from what we currently have in the Vaznev TAC meta. Well, okay, maybe it's more the Vel now. I think you guys are mentioning that they buffed it after the game is over, so actually relatively the Vel or the MP7 is very viable at the moment, which is why we saw a lot of it in that Search and Destroy tournament the other day. But Classic Minimap is back, so many other positive things from the game. They're also doing this, the original Hans Zimmer audio pack from MW2 2009. You could argue this should just be free, to be honest, for the players that have bought MW2, but, whatever, it's Activision Blizzard, baby, they do what they want. So I thought that was a nice update regardless. This is one of the big ones though from yesterday, Dolphin Dive. We heard a couple of, I would say a week or so ago now, that the movement in MW3 is crazy rapid in many respects. And when we saw the trailer and some of the announcements around it, I thought this was mainly referring to this tack stance posture that we've discussed, where it's kind of like in between when you, in between ADSing and hip firing, you've got this tactical stance thing that they might have copied from some other games, and you can do that while you're sliding, and there's going to be, I think it is going to introduce some sort of a skill gap there, but there's also going to be other things. The Dolphin Dive apparently is going to be back in business, obviously around in COD for a very long time, but sometimes they've swapped it out for sliding, but then you can kind of slide and Dolphin Dive in some games, at least in recent times, so I kind of like the idea of this personally, and yeah, seeing this back I think is a good idea, all things considered, and will favour, you'd always got to think, some of the movement guys, right, guys like Shotzzy and others, will be pretty happy to think about this. We saw at the start of Modern Warfare 2, wasn't it, when Shotzzy was finding all sorts of ideas where you could Dolphin Dive off a building, and then like you'd bounce off a car or something. Like, there's going to be some interesting things discovered in the first couple of weeks, and there's some probably in the beta as well, quite frankly. The issue is, what maps are you playing in the beta? I don't really care what the weapons are, what the perks are, apart from Dead Silence, like, even the mini-map, what it looks like, red dots or not. If the maps are good, then I don't really, like, the rest of it just pales in comparison to the importance of good maps in the game. And this has been the big question for me, is that all of these old school MW2 2009 maps coming back, there's a real question from the pros, especially because we never usually get to know what maps are in the game before it launches, and the current rumour is this is all we're getting. These 16 2009 maps will be coming back. Guys like Scump have said that this is, it's kind of unacceptable, and I get that perspective for sure. Pretty lazy on the developer side, you could definitely argue, but at the same time, many players that are going to get this upcoming game won't have even played these maps back in the day, so I don't think it's that much of an issue. The concern is, will they play like they did back then? Because if they do, it's probably okay. We know that Search and Destroy, even Capture the Flag, Demolition, Headquarters, like those game modes played well on some of these maps. We don't know about Hardpoint. We don't know if the movement speed is going to be conducive to it playing as well as it did previously. We don't know if the spawns are going to be as good. They could be better, maybe, if we're going to really go optimistic on this one. But there are some concerns, and for good reason, as to how this map pool might translate to the CDL, especially when we have rumours around doors. Now, there was a rumour a few days ago that said that they're not going to do doors, but now Charlie Intel are reporting that, rumours claim that doors could be back, as we've seen in the most recent Modern Warfare games. It does feel like it's almost about time in some respect, right? As Pal says, we would do a rumour like this. We've had lots of positives over the last couple of weeks, and now there's this one coming out. Might not happen, right? Of course, it's possible that there's no doors after all, and they go back to how it was originally. And I will say that I did notice this. I think that, PD put on Reddit that when they describe these maps, all 16 launch maps of Modern Warfare 2 2009 have been modernized. And this is what, when I saw modernized, I think I said this a couple of days ago, and I was like, oh modernized. That sounds a little bit scary, both graphically, but also with meticulous attention given to the authenticity and aspects of the maps that made them so popular. So reading that, you'd think that they're going to keep them as they are, you would at least well assume, but that might not necessarily be the case. Simp has obviously expressed his frustration with this. There's been lots of optimism from the FaZe camp, and I think for good reason, about the new game, because it's going to be quite similar in some respects to what we had in Cold War. And I mean, look, FaZe and Simp were completely ridiculous at that particular title, but it does remind me of this map. You guys might remember, this is Crash from COD 4 2007, way back in the day, when they remastered this for Modern Warfare 19. Whenever they brought it in, they put doors everywhere, and I don't really understand what Infinity Ward's love affair with doors was because of, because it takes a map that played traditionally rather well, Crash. I didn't love it personally in COD 4, but it was pretty good. Played it a lot in the remastered version, right? And when you put doors everywhere, it closes off a lot of line of sights that used to exist, and used to exist for good reason. The developers knew what they were doing back in the day making these maps, and you know, okay, maybe there's some skill gap in opening and closing the door at times, but I really don't see what their obsession was with the doors, especially when you look at this. I found this blog post when they introduced Crash. This is the tactical map intel. Like, all of these pictures you'll find, this is like the bottom fish building or whatever it used to be called back in the day. There's a door on the right hand side. If we go further down, we'll see you can actually look almost at these doorways. Every single doorway you see, this one, this one, this one, like this one, every little gap and opening, there's a door in it now, as soon as they brought this map back. And it's just not the same as it was. They even changed this map and added this entirely new section here on Crash, which I don't think they will do in the new games, because when they brought back Crash, they added this entire courtyard, which might not have been a bad idea for the gameplay decision to give some counter angle across here, but I don't know if they're going to do that. If this meticulous attention to detail is true, they'll probably want to run it back. And let's not forget, Infinity Ward made this remaster, Sledgehammer are making the upcoming remasters. I don't know if this is just dividing the map into areas, or if this is actually the hardpoint rotation. I really hope that it's not the hardpoint rotation, but I did see, like, you guys remember maps like, what was it called? Grasna Raid would have like 25 hardpoints at launch. I mean, I don't want to go there anymore. I've been traumatized enough talking about Infinity Ward's decisions on the competitive side for years, but we can see some other factors here of how the game was meant to be played. And actually, apparently, this is the headquarters rotation, so I mean, like, I don't want to say anymore, but they basically ruined Crash as far as I'm concerned. And if they do it again to the new games, you've got to wonder what this is going to mean for the competitive scene, because a lot of these maps could have plenty of doorways that would make them play rather different. Now, I know people have been saying that Scrapyard just isn't going to work for competitive as it stands, because they kind of brought it back in Ghost. It wasn't so viable back then. There's a great chance that Scrapyard isn't really viable at all. And then it's leaving you with like 4 maps. I mean, High Rise should be fine. And there aren't too many spots that might be ruined by doors, but there are some that they might be very tempted to put in. So I'm a bit concerned. But again, it's like, why would Sledgehammer do this? Their entire philosophy around this game is going from taking all the things about Infinity Ward that they did wrong over the last several years and going back to what COD used to be in some respects. That's like all their marketing as well. Like, a lot of their marketing for this game is based on, oh, we're bringing back red dots on the minimap. We're bringing back dead silence, things like this. And they've made a big deal out of these things, and for good reason, because people want the game to feel more like the games when COD was actually good, and it feels like Sledgehammer have made it their mission to try and accomplish that, even if it's bringing back things that we shouldn't really be celebrating and should have been here all along. But now if they're adding doors back, it's like, who's directing this? Does Sledgehammer make the calls, or, you know, are Infinity Ward and Activision still having some hangover here, or does Sledgehammer want the doors? I don't really know, but I just wanted to look at this because it is relevant. Method's put together his tier list of CDL era maps. One MWIII map here in Gunrunner he has in the S tier, which I think maybe, I would probably say A tier, but still, Gunrunner was a good map, I'm not going to deny it. But for all the other maps in MWIII, with the doors, let's not forget, when they first introduced them, they're all down here in the C tier, or D tier, right, obviously. Hackney Yard, Ramaza, right? I didn't even want to mention Piccadilly, but unfortunately I'm going to have to. And then we've got Arklov Peak, Azir Cave, and then St. Petrograd, right? Like, all of those maps he's got down to the D tier, and for good reason. And these maps up top, generally, do they have doors? No. In the A tier, okay, they've loved doors for some reason for the last few games. And there is some positives to them, maybe. I don't really see them personally, especially for throwback maps, right? If you're going to tell me that you're going to make the map play better by putting doors in, I simply do not believe that's going to be possible. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just wanted to close out with with this, Attach put together his updated COD tier list. He's got Black Ops 2, MW2, and Advanced Warfare up there in the S tier, and then the most recent game in the F tier. Now, players really hated this most recent title. I know there's some like COD cycle thing going on here, but I think that he isn't exactly wrong necessarily. As Attach says, lots of people didn't like my COD tier list, but I think we can all agree that MW2 2023 was the worst COD of all time. And I'm kind of more inclined to agree with Slasher that MW19 is the worst. It paved the way for the cycle that we're in. So Slasher doesn't tweet too much nowadays, but when he does, it's a classic Slasher comment, shall we say, in many respects. So very much intrigued to your thoughts and all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.